Hi, I'm Caroline Francis, Director of UK Alumni Career Services. Today, I'm joined by UK alumna Michelle Bishop Allen. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little about your career path since you've graduated from UK.
Awesome. Well, I graduated back in 2006 with my undergrad in accounting and finance. And as part of that graduation, pre-graduation, I did have an internship at Procter & Gamble that summer between my junior and senior year. I was one of 30, I think, in the nation that was selected for an accounting and finance internship up in Cincinnati. And I do think that was an important step because at that time, they did offer a full-time gig coming out of my senior year, but I was dating my now husband at the time, who I knew moving to Cincinnati probably wasn't in our cards because he is a cattle farmer who isn't exactly movable. And so essentially I did end up turning them down basically at Christmas time of my senior year. And Ashland, who is a parent or was a parent company of Abilene, happened to be on campus recruiting for an audit position right after Christmas. And so I interviewed on campus and was lucky enough to be selected for that spot from a full-time perspective coming out of my graduation. So started with Ashland/Abilene in May of 2006 and have been with them ever since. So going into my 15th year now. And we did spin off a couple years back, so that's why we're referred to just as Valvoline, and we do have our own stock symbol VVV now. But within that career journey, I was in audit for just a brief period before I was selected as part of a driver's training class by a supply chain director. He goes, you know what, I have a new inventory coordinator gig that I'm creating in my department that I think you would be perfect for. So this just goes back to, you never know where your career moments are going to happen. So I talked to my boss in audit and he's like, yeah, I actually think this is a great spot for you. And so rotated there and had spent the last 3.5 years in supply chain planning while working on my MBA at night with the University of Kentucky Professional Program. I will throw in a personal story. When I applied for the MBA, had no idea that the cards were going to play out the way they did, but I did get pregnant. And so I started the UK MBA program 15 weeks pregnant, had my son Reese in January. So took one class off. And then my whole maternity leave was going to the UK MBA program. So I always joke, if I can do it, on maternity leave, honestly, anybody can do it. And I look back on that moment and it really was, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger type of thing. And when I graduated, I just so happened to have been in supply chain for a good amount of time. And I knew, I was good at that job, but it just wasn't my passion. So I was honestly looking for what that might be. And there was an associate brand manager position that was posted as part of Abilene's internal career site. So I decided to throw my hat in the ring. And I think, honestly, being amongst 100 applicants, having that MBA really helped stand out in that applicant pool. And I was blessed enough to have a marketing director who said, you know what, I want to hire an athlete that I can help mold. I don't care that they don't have the marketing background that we usually hire. And so he brought me into the marketing department in, I think, around 2010. So I worked my way up from kind of ABM roles, really owning different brands throughout my career, and had the brand management track, as well as then was promoted to the director gig back in 2015, I believe. And then led that team and department of brand and trade marketers, and had an awesome experience getting to work with our sales team, growing our Valvoline P&L for our do-it-yourself business, which is really that consumer packaged goods piece where we sell product to AutoZones and the Walmarts of the world, where consumers pick it up off the shelf. And so back in 2017, I was asked to go lead our Walmart sales team as a career rotation. So I did that for a couple of years, and then was brought back into marketing with a bit of an expanded scope a couple years back. And in that tenure, I led our category management, our analytics group outside of the marketing team as well. And then my most recent career move has been our vice president of sales position that they just appointed me back in November. So really excited to be here to share that story. And, I've been blessed being a part of Abilene for the last 15 years for sure.
Wow, congratulations on that recent promotion. Also nice to hear that the Career Center, the UK Career Center, really helped you land that position initially. That's been a fabulous place career-wise for you.
That's right.
What do you know now that you wish you would have known earlier in your career, Michelle?
I think this is such a great question. And honestly, I had some time to kind of reflect back. But, if I think around a career journey, probably what I would have said is, back then, I probably thought it's this perfect, trajectory that there's not any lateral stops along the way. And honestly, I do think, those lateral moves that we all experience in our career do prepare you for those future steps that can ultimately then leapfrog you at different points. So just looking back on my own journey, I know every single stop I had, some may not have made sense to me in the moment, but I do think they led to the moment of me getting this position that I'm in now, which it came back to the experience. And another word I would say is experience means different things to different people. And earlier in my career, I used to translate it as I'm not getting the job because I'm at a certain age, even though I thought maybe I brought the capability. And what I would say about that, the more I've grown in my career, you do realize those experiences truly that you encounter allow you to make different choices when you kind of come across a similar scenario or situation. So that depth of wisdom that you really do get throughout your years makes a difference. And so saying that, it does require your management team to know when it's time to kind of throw you in that deep end. And, I've been blessed that I've had some great managers along my journey, and they kind of knew when the timing was right to throw me. And I do think, that's an important note, which may seem a little counterintuitive to what I said previously, which is you kind of have to trust your management team too, because they're going to throw you when they think it's when you're ready, but you also have to kind of raise your hand in the same light when you aren't afraid to kind of get out of your comfort zone. So I do think that's important because especially as women, I've learned through different programs I've been a part of through my leadership journey is we want to feel 80% confident before we'll throw our hat in the ring for a certain role, where men tend to be more in that 25% range. So I do think it's a combination and a balance of trusting your leadership team, but also not being afraid to raise your hand ultimately and say, yeah, I know I've got this. Like, I'm ready. Give me the challenge if you think I'm ready, because believe it or not, they're going to continue to put you in roles that you're going to have a bigger and bigger impact on if you're kicking ass in your current job, actually.
But yes. How are you using your degree?
That's interesting because I do have a double accounting and finance degree. And I think what attracted me to that field, I've always been data driven and numbers driven. And so I looked, throughout, I think the Career Center at the time when I was a freshman and sophomore, I was like, okay, what could I come out of school and make a decent amount of money in? And I remember accounting kind of rising to the top of the list back in that time frame. And so that's ultimately where I, landed. And for me now, I would tell you that is such a foundational element to running a business, regardless if you're sitting in the accounting department. So I'm able to look at a P&L, quickly analyze it, understand what questions to probe on and ask that are going to ultimately lead to better and stronger decision-making for our company from a strategic perspective.
You mentioned you've had some supervisors through the years that have maybe kind of supported you along the way. What about mentors, other mentors along the way? Have you had some of those?
Absolutely. And, I think of mentors being a really instrumental piece of my story. And it's not just one I could pinpoint. I think it's been throughout my career. I've sought out different mentors for diversity of thought, career advice, even business advice. So if there was a different person in a different business unit and I just wanted to seek their perspective, I would set up a quick meeting. And so it may not even have been what you would consider an official mentorship, but it kind of became that. And what I will tell you is those relationships are important. And I've even had a couple that became my bosses at different points through my career, which is fun because you already had that established rapport and you can, quite frankly, get to the bottom line faster in terms of just the business work objectives because you already know each other and you know each other's style. So I do think mentors are imperative as part of your journey. So I do encourage anybody that I'm ever talking to make sure you're seeking those out. And I get it. It can be somewhat uncomfortable. It's a little bit of speed dating to some extent, but figure out those dynamics that work. And just because you meet with somebody for the first time doesn't mean you have to continue if you don't feel like that dynamic is right. So just seek out that right chemistry.
What career advice do you have for students and also other alumni?
So for me, I think Patience is a big one. And I mentioned this previously about taking lateral moves sometimes may not feel great in the moment, but I think it's important to keep kind of that end goal in mind, that it's going to continue to build your skill set and experience that can allow that leapfrogging in the future. But then another one is, finding that internship and co-op, if at all possible. I think back to my Procter & Gamble experience, and I really do think it helps, let me stand out amongst the pool of candidates that got the job ultimately at Ashland. So, I think when you have that internship and that co-op, you got to make an impact and an impression by leading and driving tremendous value in whatever the scope they give you. So find a unique way to make your mark, be bold in your thinking and ideas to be impressionable. Don't halfway do something. Work ethic for me as a hiring manager, it's sometimes hard to pull out of an interview process, but it is something that we're very much watching for. And that's what I love about having interns in our building, is you can see that work ethic play out. And I can tell you, we've hired many interns through the UK Project Connect program, because we're able to see what their capabilities are kind of in a real life case study. But we are at Valvoline reading a book right now called Hungry, Humble, and Smart by Patrick Lencioni. And it really is about embodying those characteristics that drive a healthy culture, and ultimately what an ideal team player is. So I'm really passionate about that subject, because I do think when you evaluate teams and kind of dissect what makes a successful team versus maybe what doesn't, it can be some of those soft skills. You can have all the competence in the world, but you can have dysfunction when you aren't bringing all those other attributes to the table. And that's really around being hungry and humble. So I think that's ultimately kind of my takeaways, is just getting yourself out there, making an impact, and finding your passion is the other one, Caroline, because I think what's led to my success is I've landed in a field that I was really passionate about, and it let me use my leadership skill set as well to drive the business, and ultimately the organization rewards that at the end of the day.
Excellent. Lastly, Michelle, share with us a favorite UK memory.
Sure. So one of my most memorable, and it's hard not to pick this one, is running for student body vice president with my good buddy, Will Nash, who was running for the student body president gig. And what I loved about that experience is it brought together a cohort of individuals. We were all such good friends, but we were all interspersed in different sororities and fraternities and groups throughout the campus. You can imagine we were all involved quite a bit. So it was just such a fun experience to come together, really kind of rally around a goal, and then ultimately kind of win that election. We had some other kind of things that happened around it, but it's just hard not to call that out as a memory. And if time permits, I'll share my favorite professor story, and that was Jane Wells. I even got on the website to see if she's still there, and she's won so many teacher awards, I think, throughout her tenure. She has just been an incredible, I think, memory of mine in terms of just how inspiring she was as a teacher, and really made me fall in love with the field of accounting, which is probably funny to say to most people, but the way she taught and her approach just allowed me to finish out my degree strong and really think that I was in the right career field, which even though I'm not in accounting today per se, it still, I think, has helped foundationally get me to where I'm at.
Absolutely. Michelle, thank you so much for sharing your story with us, and we wish you all the best in the future. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.